Hi, this is Jonathan with the Multifamily Investing Podcast. And today I have with me a good friend who's also a medical professional, April Poole. Hey, April, how are you?
Hey, Jonathan, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Now, April and I met. She was actually the nurse practitioner or the PA, the physician's assistant at my primary care position. And then recently we've talked, and she's actually transitioned from that role and into another role, and is currently working with COVID-19 patients in the Washington, D.C. area. And so she and I had a brief conversation. She's been working back to back, like 12-hour shifts, almost 5 days apiece. Am I right about that, April?
That is correct. That is
So
correct.
I wanted to, for someone that I really trust, and again, trusted with my life, hear a little bit about, what's going on and some other things that we can do and stuff like that. But before we get into that, you have some pretty impressive background in terms of holistic health and nursing. Could you just talk about that, please? And we'll get into the other stuff.
Sure, Jonathan. So I started in the healthcare field back when I was in high school, and I just fell in love with the industry. My thoughts is on helping people to better themselves, better their health, make sure that they have a platform in which they could take control of their own personal health and well-being, and not only just stand around and wait for a doctor to dictate to them what it is that they need to do or what they should be doing with their life. Throughout my educational career, I did attend Howard University's Physician's Assistant program, where I learned a number of things. Going to a historically Black college, you have a lot more insight as to what people of color, the challenges that they face, not only in society, but as a whole, with the disparities going on in the community, healthcare wise, systemically, being on the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to having the better healthcare choices in their favor as opposed to other racial groups. As you mentioned before, I did work with a holistic practice whose center focus was basically healing the body from within. They focused on really gut healing and looking into the idea that the gut is really where a lot of microbiomes live and develop, and basically good bacteria and bad bacteria. And once the bad bacteria take over, that's where a lot of your issues come from, including inflammation, fatigue, other diseases, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, thyroid problems, etc. So I basically have learned that it's not just about the medication that you take when it comes to treating illnesses. It's about how you're living your life in order to avoid and prevent those illnesses from coming on to your life anyway. So
How many years have you been in the medical field? You mentioned since high school, but just how many years?
I've worked in the medical field for approximately 25 years.
25 years. And you have any additional certifications?
In addition to my additional education, I did venture out and get a phlebotomy degree early on in my career to make sure that I could stick someone's veins without having to do anything extra and leaving them bruised and battered. I also have gone out and obtained a health coach certification, which is basically helping patients and clients to better themselves with nutritional properties, showing them how to eat right, managing their exercise and stress levels. All of these things form a pattern which can either increase your prosperity when it comes to your health or decrease your chances of a healthy lifestyle. Nutrition is very, very important when it comes to regulating your blood sugar, managing your blood pressure levels, skin conditions, eczema, acne, managing obviously body fat issues, and maintaining just an overall sense that your body is at a natural and homeostatic place where you're not too intense on some things, having frequent migraines and headaches,
Right.
back pain, knee pain, um, all because of certain processed foods, sugars, and other elements that they put into food these days that really isn't good for people in general, but tends to take a bigger toll on the African American community.
And that is what we're seeing. We're hearing, a lot of news outlets are really talking about. And that's the reason why I wanted to reach out and talk to you because, again, I know you personally and as well as professionally. And, I feel very, very comfortable with you and your means and methods of follow up. She's a lot more in my face about all of these things when we have conversations. But I love it that she's using a professional voice today because that means I get a pass for right now. But
Indeed.
Nonetheless, I know that you're working on the front line, with COVID-19 patients.
Yes.
We've been hearing a lot of stuff about, what's going on in the news. And because, again, I know you personally, what are you seeing right now that's happening?
Well, I'm seeing that it's a mixture of age groups. It's not only older Americans, it's not only women, it's not only men. There are people as young as 24, 25 years old that we're seeing who may not necessarily come in with dire straight symptoms that require extended hospital stays and extended forms of treatment. However, depending on those underlying conditions that we were talking about earlier, that's going to be the factor that plays a role in how well you're going to effectively come out of this issue. Being obese, having diabetes, having congestive heart failure, underlying COPD. All these factors play a role in how your immune system is set up and how this virus will attack you. And, if you're eating well, it goes back to that old prophecy. If you're eating well and you're taking care of yourself, your body has a better chance of fighting off an illness that is trying to invade you, because you have a better chance of having the necessary nutrients, micronutrients, and that built up immunity to fight it off.
Got a question. I got a couple of different questions. You mentioned that you're seeing old and young, if you will, where you are in the DC area. But are you seeing in terms of, races that there's a disproportionate number of African Americans as the news is reporting, or, where you are, it's pretty well mixed?
So I will say this, just to give an example, without doing too much HIPAA violations or anything.
No, we do not want any of that.
Yes.
I'm just general.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just in general. I would say there's a diverse mix of patients that come into our facility.
Understood.
And when I say diverse, it's for example, I may say out of 10 older people, 5 of those people may be white, 2 may be African American, 3 may be Hispanic. The age group varies.
Got it.
The Hispanics may be more in the younger range, the 30s or 40 range. The African Americans may be in the 40s, 50 range,
Mm.
and the whites will likely be in the 70s to 80 range. Um, and I have a theory on that. Um, in our community, in the African American community, again, we're faced with a lot of challenges of diabetes, high blood pressure, various underlying issues. So when, just from my visualization, these African Americans come in, there may be obesity,
Right.
there may be that diabetes as some of the underlying conditions, whereas the the Hispanics may come in and they're younger and there is no hypertension or obesity
Okay.
involved, and
Okay.
they look really, really healthy. However, um, they're living in socioeconomic circumstances
Mm.
provide that they would be in close contact with other family members, um, maybe the community more so.
Yeah.
And so that circulated air and that circulated close quarter space that they
Yeah.
would share,
Yeah.
being a very close-knit type of community with each other, would
Yeah.
probably go through their community a little bit quicker than it would, say, the African American community, who's faced with more challenges that they would have.
Got it.
There-
So
you
there,
understand what I'm saying?
yeah, there's just a lot of, I think, a lot of social issues that
Yeah,
compound how different populations may be affected in this. And thank you for sharing
exactly.
that. Again, I don't want to go too far in that because, again, I recognize, the privacy things that you have
Yes.
to deal with. But I want to shift from there. I want to ask another question before I get to one of the other things that I've asked you to do today.
Yeah.
You mentioned eating well. So what is eating well? Do you're thinking Mediterranean diet, something like, the keto diet, because, in the South, eating well is,
Yeah.
you're high on the hog, as it were, you're eating,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, just to touch base on what you just mentioned, yes. So eating well traditionally in African American families, eating well is making sure that you are full at that table, and you're not going to go to bed hungry, and everyone is fellowshipping and everything's grand. That's your macaroni and cheese and your greens and your fried chicken. And while that food is very savory and delicious and tastes well done and will make you remember things forever, um, it's not the best choices to go into our bodies, especially on a regular basis. Now, I'm always one to say you have to practice moderation. When you mention keto and Mediterranean diets and pescatarian diets, I promote really eating what's best for yourself. The first thing I say is always eat clean. Eat as clean as you can, which means taking out processed foods, um, sugars, unnecessary sugars, uh, and basically just unprocessed calories that you really don't need to be putting in your body. I try to tell my clients to shop on the perimeter of the grocery store. So when you go in, there's the produce, the bakery, the seafood, everything on the outer rim of the grocery store is where you want to really focus on where you're going to get your nutritional input. Then, if you have to, go through the aisles where there aren't any refrigerated sections, there isn't any water that has to keep anything fresh. These are your box things that are going to have a longer shelf life, but they're going to have a lot of preservatives. They're going to be processed. And with that processed and artificial flavors and colorings, those are things that you really don't think are going to be effective to you in the long term, but they actually turn out to be very, very disruptive in your nervous system, your immune system. They can cause cancers, a number of other things, diabetes, a lot of things. So it's really important to just sticking to your fruits and your vegetables,
Yeah.
rainbow eating.
Right.
The more colorful your food is, the better it is for you. And if you're going to eat meat, make sure you're eating lean cuts of meat, um, chicken breast as opposed to chicken thighs, which have a lot more fat content. Um, and just basically practicing treating your body like it deserves to be treated so that it can give you the best run of its life and as many years as you can.
Got it. Well, one of the things that, I know specifically with my family, we are in the process of doing some things so that we all have the proper PPE, especially when, Maryland right now, at the time of this recording, it's the first part of May 2020. We're looking to get masks and gloves and things of that sort for, going back out. I know that, some family members I know who are younger are, being called being called back to work. So I want to make sure that everybody, at least, and I'm doing this for my family and I'm going to be doing it for the community at large. What is the proper way to put on some of these PPEs? PPEs are, what is a PPE? Let me make sure I got that explanation correct.
Okay, so PPE is classified as personal protective equipment.
Okay.
And personal protective equipment varies in degrees, just depending on where you're at, who you're around, and your activities that you're doing. So most commonly in society these days, you're going to use two types of personal protective equipment. First are gloves and then a mask. Now, in my line of work, in the hospital around COVID patients, we have to use an N95 mask, which is a mask that looks like this. Mask generally has to be fitted on you to make sure that it will fit around your face and there are no openings. So when I started at this position, there was a mock mask that they have, and they put it on your face, and then there's a little solution that they'll spray in, and if you can taste the solution through the mask, then the mask is not effective and doesn't fit your face.
Okay.
So this is specifically designed to fit your face. These masks are not washable. They do need to be replaced. Preferably every couple of weeks, but with shortages going on across the country with these masks and other personal protective equipment, we're trying to really just get as much use out of them as we can and try to keep them as clean as we can, without getting them too wet or, basically destroying them with water. There are ways to get them clean with UV light, but again, with shortages and budgets across the country dealing with this, that's not always available to us. The second type of mask we have is just a basic surgical mask. I see that they have these even at the gas stations nowadays, just so that people can get them. You want to just be careful and make sure that it's a mask that's going to give you at least some protection. This has a filter in it. You can tell it has filters so that it will filter out particles that are coming in, and it also bends at the top so that it can fit around your nose, the bridge of your nose, and conform to your face. These masks, again, do not provide protection in a closed situation where you're dealing with COVID patients on a regular basis. So the difference between this one would be you would wear this in a hot zone when you're dealing directly with patient-to-patient care. And then these could be used either on top of these masks to try to give you a little bit of extra protection, or you could just use these out in the street in your daily use if you're working in a bank or a grocery store or somewhere where you just want that extra added protection in case someone coughs or sneezes and it's not directly going into your nasal passages.
Got it. And then can you show us how to say, like, put one on and properly take it off? Because I see people doing things all kind of ways, and I remember even seeing another family member recently. We were celebrating my birthday, and he was eating cake with gloves on. So I was like,
Yes. Yes.
so show us how to put them on and take them off, please. Thank you so much.
Okay. So basically, as you were saying, one thing we have to remember is when you are utilizing gloves, you have to understand that, yeah, the gloves are protecting your hands underneath, but gloves are not protecting everything from everything that you've touched. So with your basic pair of gloves, these are just some nitrile gloves with no latex. Basically, I just have a box of them and I would just take them out. First, it's important to know the only time I would be using these gloves, a situation would be if I'm going into the grocery store and I don't particularly want to put my hands over all of the products or the shopping cart and everything that everyone else has touched. So before I enter the store, not while I'm still in my car, before I enter the store, I'm going to put the gloves on, and this is what the glove looks like here. It looks like a regular glove with hands. So you're just going to insert your hands into the gloves as such, and you just have the glove on. It's really also important to make sure that your glove fits well. I wear about a medium-sized glove. If I put on a large glove, it'll be a little bulky and it might slide off. Things could slide in underneath. Some moisture could slide in. So you want your gloves pretty tight, snug on your hand. I wouldn't say tight fitting so that you're restricted. But as you can see, there's the glove here. And then you would take it and you would put the other glove on. While you're shopping in the grocery store or you're at the gas station, these are when you're going to be using things. Once you are finished and you are done doing what you have to do, and the last thing that you're going to do before you get into your car is you're going to take the gloves off, because you have to remember everything that you've touched now in the grocery store, on the outside of the grocery store, is now on the surface of these gloves. And if you get into your car, you're just going to be spreading it all over the place, and you're really not going to have a use for gloves. So the way I take my gloves off is as such. I'm going to take my pinky here and hook right up underneath this glove here and just pull it off of my hand as such, and then take the second hand and just do the same thing and just pull it, and now your gloves are all wrapped up. You have the inside of the gloves on the outside and the outside of the gloves on the inside, and you can just go ahead and just toss these, dispose of them as you choose. I don't recommend reusing gloves, especially like this, because again, the contamination on the outside, you're going to end up contaminating your hand all over again once you try to manipulate this to go back on the outside of your hand. So it's really better to just have a fresh pair of gloves and really just use them in situations that you really have close contact with other people, or there's multiple people that are around touching things. I wouldn't suggest using them around the house. It's your house. It's just like wearing a mask in your house. It's your air. You can just breathe it and circulate it. But just to add an added layer of protection, you can use these. If you opt not to use these gloves and choose to just put your hands on things, I recommend making sure you walk around with hand sanitizer, just so that you can sanitize your hands real quick and zap them clean. Because again, your hands are going to transfer whatever it is you were touching in the grocery store back into your car once you get in there.
Got it. So now the mask. Can you show us how to put those on? You've got two types of masks, and want to make sure that we show people how to put them on and take them off without the cross-contamination that you mentioned.
Absolutely. So again, this is the N95 mask. Everyone doesn't have these, but I do see people walking around with them. So on this particular mask, like the surgical mask, there are two little hooks designed here, but these hooks are designed to go horizontally over your head as opposed to vertically on your ears. So this type here, you would put over the top of your head, and in some instances, you could stretch both of these over your head. However, this bottom one, as you can see, is a little bit smaller than the top one. I don't know if you can tell. So when it fits over the back of your head, it's going to be a little bit more snug, and it may be prone to hurting the back of your head after a long period of time. So what I do to put this mask on is I basically just take the top and I put it over my head, and you're going to make sure that it's kind of over the top of your ears here so that it's not doing too much. And then with this one, I'll readjust this one over that to secure it. And so it makes a nice little parallel lines here.
Okay.
And it's snug on my face. On the bottom, it's on my chin.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, okay. All right.
This is snug on my nose here, and there's no air that's able to get in between this mask. It takes a lot to wear this mask. The breathing in the mask is very limited. When you're on the COVID unit, you have to keep your mask on. So we find that we can get a little bit of air sometimes if you can just kind of take off the top, but it's very important not to be in an area where you're exposed to the virus, or you're going to run the risk of contaminating yourself. So just keep in mind that this mask it's not the conventional mask that you would normally wear for a long period of time if you're out shopping and you don't have to wear it in a professional setting.
Okay.
Because it is kind of it's constricting, and it's very hard to breathe. However,
I saw how you took it off. So
you start with one. You don't just pull it off of your face. You start with one, and then you take it off from the bottom, and then remove the other one from your head. That way, you're not really touching the outer part of the mask.
Why not touch the outer part? That's the key.
So the outer part of the mask would be considered to be a hot zone. This is where all the bacteria, the virus is coming through, and it's a barrier here, and it's not going into your respiratory system.
Got it.
So if you can, you could take a wipe, and you can kind of wipe off the front of the mask to kind of keep it clean. But again, you don't want to saturate the mask, because once you saturate it and it becomes wet, then it's going to not be effective anymore.
Got it. Okay.
So this is that first mask there. Now, this surgical mask, this is how they come. They come flat. And again, there's a portion down here that's just fabric. There's a portion up here that has a small metal little bendable fold here. There's 2 earpieces, and the design of the mask has folds in it with the filter so that it can stretch over your face to your desired comfort level. So how you would put the mask on is you would take both of the ends here, put it over your face, secure it behind your ears. Take it and put it down here under your chin, and then you can just, with your fingers, kind of gently conform it to your face. And if you see here, it's very similar to the N95 mask of how the 2 lines are on the side. It's just not going behind my head, it's just behind my ears. On the side here, you see that I have coverage. There's not really a lot that's going to be in or out, and I can breathe. It's a lot less daunting than trying to breathe through this mask. It gives you a little bit extra means to kind of get your air out and get your airflow in. When you're taking the mask off, you just undo it from your ears as such, and then just take it down like this. These masks can be reused again and again. You want to stop using them when you feel like they're dirty or they develop an odor. Again, usually I would not wear these in the car because it's just your air in the car, unless you have a compromised individual in there, a grandmother or someone with some immunodeficiency. That you don't want to really directly breathe their air or have them breathe in your air, then I would do that. But for the most part, I see a lot of people walking around outside with masks on. I'm kind of on the fence about that myself.
Okay.
After wearing this mask for 12 and 13 hours straight, I just really want some fresh air sometimes. So I will be outside and not put on a mask, but I definitely adhere to the rules when I'm in
Yes.
stores and spaces where they require you to wear a mask. And I do have this mask that I put on and just kind of go in and out of the stores with. So,
Could you just pause 1 second? I want to show you one other thing. Okay, so I have myself a mask. I went online and purchased, it's a cloth mask. It doesn't have a filter, as it were. There is no the bendy, stretchy type thing, metal, if you will. And so, if I'm out and about
mhm.
and using this, is this enough for me to go into the store with, if I'm going to work with, or should I upgrade my mask as well?
Okay, that's a great question. So with masks like that, they're not going to provide you the best protection against COVID-19, the flu, the common cold, or anything like that.
Okay.
However, those masks will satisfy Safeway, the CVS. They're not really going to be on your case about what type of mask that you have. They just want you to adhere to the rules of covering your face.
Got it.
Um, with that being said, these
Well,
masks,
yeah,
these masks, as opposed to a cloth mask, is still going to provide a little bit of coverage for you. You're still going to get that filter, and if someone sneezes 3 feet from you, you're still not going to directly have those organisms going into your respiratory system. So I wouldn't say just get rid of that mask. It's not effective. Still wear that mask, but just know that you don't have the filter of this mask or
got
the
it.
N95 mask.
So there is another mask that I've been looking at, and I'll get that. And it looks like this still, but there is a filter that you can put in. There is also
Yes.
another one, so you can put a filter in there and have that extra filter, and then you
Yes.
can just wash the exterior one.
Exactly.
It appears that when we go back to interacting with people, the new normal will be that we will always have to have masks. And my thought process is, as you change your undergarments, you should change your mask.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah. So what we're doing, in our families, we're setting up a little store. We're doing some negotiations so that we can purchase a lot of these PPEs that you've given us, et cetera. One last question. You had mentioned that you don't put your gloves on in the car. Why not put them on in the car before you get out of the car and go into the store? Just a
Well, my personal reason on that is when I get out of the car, instead of putting on the mask, I'm still going to be touching things in the car, on the outer side of the car, and everything like that. You want to kind of keep your exposure to COVID or any other nasty little pathogens as much of a minimum as you can.
right.
Um, once you once you step into the store, that you have to consider that your hot zone.
Got it.
So just before you step into the store, the gloves should come on.
Got it.
Um, I would, even though I have gloves on, most grocery stores have the wet wipes there to wipe down the carts. I would still do that before even touching the cart, because again, you're trying to decrease your risk
Yeah.
of any other pathogens going home with you. You already have your gloves on and you're touching
Yeah.
cans and produce. So the likelihood that you're touching bananas and everything, people are going to bet that you're going to go home and you're going to wash your produce and everything,
Yes.
and not just eat apples out of the grocery store.
So
So
should we, that's a good question. So another tip for people who are watching and or listening, if you're in Walmart if you don't have gloves, I suggest going to Walmart, go to the auto section, and there are gloves that are there, the black gloves. I found them as low as $2.47 for 20
yes,
gloves.
yes,
So
there
that
you
should
go.
be affordable. Yeah.
That is affordable. But again, I want to just reiterate to your listeners that if you do not have gloves and you're not in the situation where you can get gloves or they're not available to you, make sure you have some hand sanitizer with you, because that's always going to be your second line of defense if you can't wash your hands thoroughly and you don't have any gloves to protect yourself against everything on the outside.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, listen, wow, you've given us a lot of information to digest. I'm certainly getting this out to my family, and I hope that our listeners are potentially going to use some of this information. Maybe they've learned something that they didn't know before. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners around health, fitness, and just protecting oneself, et cetera, as we're in this time? Because as we understand from Dr. Fauci and Dr. Briggs, come fall, there will be another, we'll have the common cold to deal with, right? As well as another resurgence of this coronavirus. So there may be some things that we can do now to help us to whatever it is that you have. It'd be great to hear.
Absolutely, Jonathan. So I again reiterate nutrition. Focus on making sure that you're hydrated, you're eating your fruits and your vegetables. Everyone doesn't like them, but it's really a good time while everyone's home to explore different recipes, different foods, different condiments that you like with the foods. Really focus on getting out and walking. The air is so much cleaner. There's less traffic. Today looks like a beautiful day. Get out on a bike trail with your kids and just go out and walk. Have a good, delicious dinner and lunch. Healthy foods that is going to bring abundance to you. It's really important to just cut down on the sugar. And I think a lot of people don't realize sugar is not just candy bars and sodas. It's pasta, it's rice, it's a lot of starches. And if you're sitting at home just saying, oh, well, I'm eating great, I might have a tuna sandwich every day, if it's not a tuna sandwich on lettuce and you're eating bread, then you're kind of defeating the purpose. Another thing that I would suggest is, just before we go, a lot of the things in the grocery store these days are gone. You've got toilet paper gone, you've got meat's gone, you've got all kinds of things gone. Your chip aisle is empty. All these aisles are empty. One thing I see that's still full is vitamins. You've got to increase your vitamin intake, vitamin C, echinacea, things that are going to keep you healthy, your B12 vitamins, your vitamin Ds. You have to make sure that your body's being taken care of, especially if you're not going outside regularly and absorbing the sun's vitamin D. You've got to supplement that so that you can take control of your immune system and your health. So I would definitely say everybody get up on a vitamin regimen and start getting your immune system healthy for this fall, because like you said, the colds are coming, allergies are coming, the flu will be here.
Right.
We have a lot of things coming at us. So the better you prepare your body, the better off you will fare in this nonsense.
Understood. Well, listen, thank you again for, your time. I know I'm interrupting your sleep, but I know we'll see each other, at some time soon, but please take care of yourself. And thank you again for everything. All right.
Thank you.
If people need to get in contact with you, how should they get in contact with you? If they want to reach out and ask a couple more questions, what do they do?
Absolutely. You can reach me via email. It's april.poole75@gmail.com. And I'll be more than happy to give you any insight or tips or point you in the right direction if you have any questions about anything that you just don't know the answers to or you're looking for some clarity on.
Yep. And that's april.poole. Poole is spelled Poole. At gmail.com. We'll make sure that it's in the description for anybody else who wants it. Again, thanks again to April Poole for sharing with us some medical insights from the front line. Again, this is being recorded as of early May of 2020. All the best to everyone. If you need anything, please reach out to myself or April, and we'll see what we can do to get answers for you. Thanks.